We are back, everybody, and our guest this week is a member of easily the most famous professional wrestling family that there's been. Some people might argue that, but I don't think there's any argument against it. There's been more WWE superstars and more pro wrestlers from this family than even the McMahons. You've seen him on NXT. He was also in the Cruiserweight Classic. I would like to refer to him as the sire of the SWAT kick. Welcome, Sean Maluta. Sean, thank you so much for taking some time out tonight.
Anytime, man. I appreciate you having me on.
So, of course, I'm sure you probably get asked about your family a lot. Is that something that's tiring at all? Because I definitely want to get into a little of that.
No, it's never tiring. I'm very proud of the family that I'm in, and I'm just living the life. I'm blessed. I got to see a lot of cool things growing up. It's just very cool to see, so many members of the family going on and doing big things. And, I'm just trying to put my stamp on things as well.
So, for those that are not aware, because while doing a little bit of homework for this, you're a little bit of a hard man to find information on. I noticed there's no Wikipedia, there's a little bit of info on you on Pro Wrestling Wiki. So for those that don't know, could you kind of explain, the bloodline, which, of course, everyone knows started with who, I guess, would have been your great-uncle, Peter Maivia, if that's correct?
I was actually, I'm actually related, through marriage. My uncle Alpha, who is more like a dad to me, he kind of helped raise me. I've always been... I was always around him. I've even lived with him at different points of my life. His wife is actually my blood aunt. The rest is history from there. But, everybody has just, taken me in, so greatly. And, I got to see and meet, a lot of distant cousins, when I was growing up and all throughout the years. That's pretty much how it happened. I always refer to my Uncle Alpha as my uncle, but, he's more like a dad to me, especially growing up.
Right, yeah, I'm actually looking at a little bit of the family tree here, and for those that have never seen it, it is quite massive, and it's quite the list of names, including yourself. So you actually got to train for wrestling with Alpha. But before that, was pro wrestling something that you always kind of looked at that you wanted to do, or was that kind of something, that came as a younger adult? Were you really thinking about it as a kid at all?
Oh, this was my dream without a doubt. I think I would definitely contribute it to, growing up and just seeing so many cool things as a kid. Being around the business, it seems like I've always been around, events and training centers all my life. And, when you're a kid, you just take in your what's going on in your environment. So I was always seeing, crawling around that ring. And, at times, I just didn't want to leave that ring. I was just mesmerized by the whole process. As I got older, I just fell more and more in love with it. I want to say, in my younger years, my uncle was managing at the time. If you guys remember, he was the manager of the Head Shrinkers. So just from that alone, I was able to tag along with him and attend, some of the first Monday Night Raws ever. I got to go to, a lot of WrestleManias, especially later on in my life, after he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. I was very fortunate growing up to, see a lot of this stuff. And I think it just made me, fall in love with the game, more and more. Before I was legal to wrestle in the state of Pennsylvania, which is where I first started training. I was basically, I just asked my uncle if I can be involved in any way, shape, or form, even when I was underage. And so I spent a lot of my teens, actually doing the camera and doing doing the ringside camera and things like that. And then later on, I learned how to edit on computers and build TV shows and, a lot of cool things like that. It's all secondary compared to actually being in the ring and wrestling. But, I just love the business. I just wanted to contribute. I wanted to be a part of it any way I could. I was, legally in Pennsylvania, again, you had to be 14 years old to start wrestling. And that's exactly what I did. As soon as I turned 14, I was in that ring, and now it was a little bit different than growing up. Now it was a little bit more serious, and I was able to learn things the correct way and to be taken serious. The rest is history.
So that's really interesting that you got to kind of work on the opposite side of the camera, I suppose, in your earlier years. So before you got into your training, or when you got into your training, did being on that side of things kind of help out at all? And do you think that maybe it was a little harder training with a relative than perhaps if you would have went to like I guess up in this area, the closest thing would be like New England Pro Wrestling Academy?
Right. I'm not sure. I don't think it had me running the camera and doing things like that. Well, I mean, I guess it did play into when I was actually in ring. I looked for certain things, and especially when I was editing on the computer, and like for example, putting two camera angles together. It's constant. Rewatching a lot of the same moves and the same matches, and that's what you have to do in order to get the job done and put a taped TV show out there. So I don't know. Maybe it was I was always just by doing that, I would see the same move maybe 10 times, let's say, and you start to catch things differently rather than just watching it once. I definitely think that helped a little bit. As far as training with family, once again, I was very fortunate. I did not have it easy at all. In fact, sometimes I had to lead by example, and I still do today. My uncle definitely didn't take it easy on me. He's always had a strict way of training to get the very best out of you. Over the years, sometimes warm-ups can be just 1,000 squats alone, it could be pretty rigorous even before you even, step in the ring. But, at the end of the day, even though you're hating it when you're doing it, afterwards you just feel so accomplished, and, you just feel like you got the most out of training, and you pushed yourself. So, I always enjoyed my uncle's, training method. And, obviously it still carries over with me today. And, it was a great 4 years of training, before I was actually, legal to wrestle in Pennsylvania at 18. So I felt like I was, even though I would beg my uncle to, send me out there in a mask or, do anything I could to, wrestle before I was the age. I'm happy that I got the experience and, a lot of training under my belt, before I went that route.
So obviously coming from, such a famous family, and, you said you were a kid going to shows when, he would become Rikishi later on, but Fatu and Samu were the head shrinkers. And a lot of kids, I think we're pretty close to the same age here, were really into pro wrestling at that point. Did you kind of notice, going to school, kids were like, oh, you're related to so-and-so, can I come over to your house kind of thing?
No, it wasn't really anything like that. A lot of my close friends that I still have today, almost 90% of them, it seems like it was because of the common interest of wrestling. I always try to stay active. When I was a kid, I started playing, Little League baseball. That was kind of my first deal, and then I moved on to studying martial arts, Taekwondo, karate, which I actually really enjoyed, and I miss it. Actually, I did that for about 7 years. I attribute my athletic background to definitely starting there. As far as school, you get little comments here and there, and the more that you talk to people, and then you get to tell them who your family is. Some of them are just amazed by it. Some of them think it's pretty cool that they know somebody like that. It hasn't been anything overwhelming, but it's definitely cool to talk to people and tell them a little bit about the family, and they kind of look at you in a different light, like you're a part of something cool. So that's all good stuff.
So also when you were younger, because you have so many cousins and you spoke about meeting some distant cousins and things like that, were there ever any kind of like big family get-togethers where you'd get to hang out with people like, I'll use their kayfabe names so people know, but like Roman or Jimmy and Jay or anybody like that?
Yeah, actually, well, first of all, in the Samoan culture, family is everything. I'm sure it is in a lot of cultures out there, but for whatever reason, the Samoan culture is very big on keeping the family close and keeping everything tight. I can remember a lot of family reunions. We try to do that, like at least once a year. A lot of the family is scattered all over the place. You got some in Pennsylvania, you got some in California, and Las Vegas and things like that, Florida. So we always relied on the reunions to get together and rebond with everybody, and just like I said, just keep the family close. So, I can remember, growing up a little bit, even though they're a little bit older than me, just, messing around and playing around with the Usos and Roman, like you said, especially the Usos because, the age is a little bit similar, same kind of, you just connect better with, people your age, I guess. But, a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool family moments like that. And, just trying to see each other as much as possible.
Yeah, those guys are, I obviously don't know them as well as you, but just from seeing them on TV and shows like Total Divas or stuff like that, those guys are hilarious too. So I can only imagine how much fun they were, as kids.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right, so back into the wrestling part, going back to when you debuted, which would have been in 2004, if that's right. Like I said, I'm not sure how accurate any of this information is. What do you really recall about those first few matches, and who were you working for? Were you working with any kind of opponents that really stood out to you? What was kind of the learning curve?
Yeah, when I was 18, I was just so excited to finally start doing this. I actually had like a match when I was 16. Like a lot of kids out there, I fell into the backyard wrestling pattern. Even being around training centers all the time, I still mess around with my friends, in the backyard, and we actually took the thing serious, and I did it for like a year and a half, and until it seemed like a lot of us, especially my close friends today, who I'm sure I'll talk about a little bit later, but we started training professionally, and a lot of us went from the backyard to taking this a little bit serious. So we actually put on a little event, and got a lot of names on that event. Like Homicide, B-Boy, whoever was hot in the Northeast at the time, because the show was based out in New Jersey. I wrestled one of my friends I grew up with, Chris Dickinson, who's pretty much all over the place now, and including internationally. We initially met each other when we were kids in karate, and then we got to have I got to have my first match, I guess I would officially say, against him, which was pretty cool. But then there was a big gap between that and then when I was going full time when I was 18. The only reason I got away with that is because there was no laws in New Jersey at the time. So But, obviously, WXW, my uncle's promotion was going to be my starting point, and that's exactly what I did. My first singles match, for the company was a guy named Tonic. He was one of our, he was a student at the training center. A lot of the roster is made up of the students of the training center. There'll be some guys coming in and out. I can remember having a couple of cool matches with Devin Moore in my first year in the business, who's based out of Philly. And then I quickly started branching out. I tried to, as my obsession grew, I just had to stay busy, and I tried to get booked everywhere I could at the time. A couple people helped me along the way. One of my closest cousins, Alpha Jr., who was wrestling as Manu, once he was finished in the WWE, he came back to the Indies, and me and him always been close, so I got to travel with him. He took me around a little bit. I got to do some tag matches with him. Just staying busy and trying to get that experience in, and that's exactly what I did for a few years. Until my uncle closed up shop and actually moved to Florida. As he did that, Samu took over the company in Pennsylvania, which his version is called WXWC4. So we technically have, two companies, one in Florida and one in PA. So I worked for Sam a lot. Sam is always great to work, to learn from and work with. He's one of my favorite, hands down, one of my favorite family members to watch. I just think, he had so many great runs between, you got to think he was one of the Wild Samoans later on. And then he got to do the Head Shrinkers and my favorite, the Samoan SWAT team.
Yeah,
I don't know.
A lot of people forget about the Samoan SWAT team. They kind of only really remember the Head Shrinkers, because
right.
WCW didn't quite have the momentum at that time.
Right, and I'm a huge fan of the SWAT team. That's might even be my favorite. Samoan, Samoan characters or Samoan run that I've seen and I got to enjoy and watch. But anyway, got a lot of training in with him, and worked with him a lot, and I don't know, something told me that I needed to keep training with my uncle. No offense to anybody else, but when my uncle settled down in Florida and opened his training center and his company, I just felt like that was the right move for me to make. To keep learning with him and keep working for WXW. So I made the move down to Florida to follow him down in 2010, and it was because of that purpose, was to stick with him and get better.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a smart move, and I think a lot of people who would have been in the same position as you, nobody's gonna work you harder than your family, but for a fact that they're gonna steer you in the right direction, as opposed to going to somebody that you might not know.
Right. And it's kind of a big move to make. It's a life-changing thing. I mean, who knows? I could have been, I could have just tried it out and been back in a couple months. But I looked at it as like, moving to a college or something. To keep getting experience and keep training. So it wasn't easy leaving family and friends at first, but you got to do what you got to do. To try to live your dream. I appreciate anybody that that makes that move, that's willing to change your life, or just for that opportunity.
And of course, relocating from the Northeast to Florida, which I have done before, the weather has to help a lot. So
absolutely. That's a bonus there.
Yeah, I keep asking myself, why did you move back to Maine? I'm not quite sure yet. All right, so of course, later on people would see you in CWC and NXT, but before we get into that, you started at 18, and when you would have got into doing NXT and CWC, you would have been 27, I believe. So that's kind of 9 years on the road, really. So did you ever kind of think, I'm not gonna make it to the big time, or was there ever any kind of discouragement, or were you just kind of head down, plugging through the line of scrimmage?
Right. Well, confidence always has to, you always got to try to remain high as far as confidence goes, and but in all reality, it could be frustrating. You stay humble and you stick to the plan. But my first tryout for the WWE was back in 2010, and I've had many tryouts. I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead and we're gonna get there later, but many tryouts I've had before I've had this big opportunity this past summer with the Classic. Every tryout, you're always confident that that's going to be the one, and you're going to show them something special, and then months go by and you don't hear anything. So it could be, you got to be strong minded, and you got to have that will and that drive, to keep it going. And almost 5 or 6 years after my first tryout, here I was at the Classic. Everybody's got their own journey. Everybody's different. I just focused on trying to improve after every tryout. I would soak in all the advice and everything that I learned, and I just wanted to come back, that much better, that much sharper, and just be coachable. And it was never something where I was like, I felt like quitting or anything like that. But a lot of sleepless nights, just thinking, and but at the end of the day, you love it. You got to stick to the plan, and everything happens for a reason. It just just motivated me to work that much harder.
Exactly. What do they say? Motivation is the best sensation. I think they say.
Yeah.
So, before you got into any of while you were doing those tryouts, and of course, things didn't happen for you until later on, you were still working on the indies. What were, were there some other bigger companies that you were working for? Maybe some great matches that you had, some of the opponents that you faced off with that really kind of stand out in your mind?
I mentioned my buddy Chris Dickinson, who I had my first match against. Grew up with him, since karate days. There was also a third in that group, and he actually became my tag team partner for a little while. Who he wrestled under Jaka, aka Johnny Mangwe. He's also based out of the Northeast. We had a pretty good look to us, back then. We kind of looked alike, and we both had a similar style. We like to bring that savage style. And he's one of my best friends, and we had the idea of tag teaming, so we did a couple of indies as a tag team, going around Long Island, and we worked for JEP. It's a pretty big company out of New Jersey. Eventually, we moved on to Beyond Wrestling, who they were based out of Ohio at the time. Companies here and there. I also did my thing, tagging with Alpha Jr. Got to go to WWA, which was based out of Connecticut and Massachusetts. So, just taking the work as it comes, and getting, living through certain, different experiences. I got to tag with, one of my closest cousins. Got to tag with one of my best friends, and then I also try to do my thing singles, when it called on it. So, here and there, but it always came back to WXW, and which is my home promotion.
Yeah, I know a lot of people in the New England area have become familiar with Beyond Wrestling over the last few years, and one of our homegrown talents performs for them quite a bit, Ace Romero. So if you haven't met him, I'm sure maybe you will meet him in the future. Bigger guy, definitely can move well for a bigger guy, and I think he's only a couple years younger than you as well.
Okay,
so a lot of people in this area definitely are starting to get into Beyond Wrestling. They're really becoming to get a name for themselves in New England.
Right.
So we'll definitely touch a little bit more on that. So before we get into the WWE stuff, one of the kind of standard questions we usually ask everybody, because as we all know, it's a grind before you can really make it big, and you're always traveling a lot. So do you have any good/funny road stories?
I always go back to I probably was only been driving for like a year at this point, but I had to make a trip one time. Me and Alpha weren't tagging, but I was riding down with Alpha, and I think we were coming from the Allentown, Pennsylvania area, and we were going up to Pittsburgh, which that could be a ride. I believe it was like 5-6 hours, and it was just hour left that day. That 5 minutes into the trip, that a damn blizzard is coming down. So I'm already for freaking out, because this is like the longest I've ever drove, and I wasn't really an experienced driver then, but I had to pay my dues and I had to do it, and it was just a fear, I guess, in both of our minds that they would end up gonna cancel the show last second, which would have been like a total of like 12 hours driving for nothing. So it wasn't fun driving in a blizzard, but we got there. The snow stopped. The show was great, actually. It was one of my it was one of the first matches of my career where, like, I got a lot of respect afterwards. A lot of feedback to say. The promoter was very happy with the work. I don't know. It was just one of those feel good moments for me. But I guess the rib was driving in the blizzard, and not knowing if the damn show was going to happen or not. But it ended up turned out great.
Yeah, I can totally sympathize, because I'm 31 and I still hate driving in the snow. So I definitely feel you on that one. Yet another reason why I ask, why the hell did I move back here?
Yeah, I don't got to worry about that too much more. I'm in Florida now, so I'm pretty much retired from the snow.
Yeah, I'll go outside and I'm like, man, I used to play in this crap when I was a kid, and now I can't deal with it. I'm getting too old. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. Oh, you know what it is. It's all fun and games until you have to drive in it.
Exactly. Or until you have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to clear the driveway just so you can go to work or something.
Yeah.
All right, so of course you got your biggest exposure with the Cruiserweight Classic, which has really kind of changed the game for, mostly for WWE, but it's really made them take notice of independent wrestling and, companies like Ring of Honor or even WXW. So what do you recall about how that opportunity happened? Was it something like William Regal was scouting you at a show, or was it something, you heard through maybe Roman or whoever was working there at the time?
Well, I mentioned, I've had various tryouts over the years, and, Mr. William Regal, he's a big part of that whole process. He's, if everything is right, he's the guy that you're working in front of, and he's the one that's critiquing you and whatnot. So I think, over the years, especially the last, few tryouts I had, I think he took a liking to me and my work, and, he gave me this opportunity. I was at one of my tryout loops that I was booked for. I think it was actually I know it was January of this year. It was the Royal Rumble week. It was the Rumble, and then we did Raw and SmackDown. And that was when I first got approached about it. It was actually the backstage at the Royal Rumble, which is already, cool as it is. It was cool being there, but then, Regal hit me with the news of my life, and, he pretty much told me, this is the plan. It was a rough, version of the plan at the time, because it was, the actual tournament didn't happen until maybe 5 months later. So, he saw something in me to give me the opportunity, and that's all I ever wanted or needed. As the months build up, a bunch of follow-ups came through, lots of paperwork, and, started sinking in, like, oh man, this is really happening, this is my opportunity. And not only that, but, it's just so great to see, Cruiserweight wrestling, make its return, and, so much talent out there that, even Triple H says it himself in interviews. There's been so much talent that hasn't had this opportunity in the past. Maybe a lot of talent have gotten passed up because of their lack of size and things like that. So it was just so refreshing and great to know that Cruiserweight wrestling was coming back, and the way the indies have been the last few years. There's so much great talent out there, and I was just happy to be one of the 32. That made me feel pretty good. When you think about being one of 32 out of the world, and you look to your side. When I was actually there, you look to your side, you see, some of the best Japanese talent you've ever seen, and then I look on my other side, and you got the best Mexican talent. I mean, it was just such an overwhelming thing. I know I'm jumping ahead, but like I said, just honored to be a part of it. As the months, built and built, I just, the mindset was, it was there, and I was ready to get it done. This is what I've been training for all my life, for opportunities like this, and I was just ready to go, and couldn't wait for June to go down.
So, yeah, I could only imagine the feeling of that. It's kind of, you've worked all your life for this. So, kind of describe to me, what was running through you that day. Of course, everyone knows, unfortunately, you only had one match. However, it was against arguably one of the greatest wrestlers on the planet, Kotobuki. So,
right.
You're standing behind the curtain, the music hits, and you're ready to go out. What's going through your mind? Kind of describe to me, the whole feeling?
Well, I would actually backtrack to it was kind of like a week-long thing. The taping for the first round of the tournament was done on a Thursday, but a lot of the talent had to report to the Performance Center on that Monday. So just being at the Performance Center alone was an experience. It was my first time there, and then that was the first time getting to meet some of these guys. Some of the best talent in the world. A lot of cool moments, and meeting with the coaches. Performance Center has the best coaches out there, hands down. It was just cool. It was just the people that I've always seen over the years. As doing different tryouts and things like that. But now it's like it's on a working level now. They're physically working with me. And putting their touches on the matches and things like that. So that was all an awesome experience. As far as Kotobuki goes, he was, the reputation that he had going in was something special. And I'm just, first of all, I'm a huge fan of Japanese wrestling. I think a lot of my style is influenced by that too. Ibushi is somebody that I've known for a couple of years now. Always enjoyed watching his stuff. Like you said, arguably, one of the best in the world. It was cool, that my first match with the company was going to be against somebody like him. So that was something. As far as me personally, how I was feeling, definitely nervous, but, just more excitement than anything. This has been a long time coming for me. It seems like after every tryout, no matter what happens, you just want it more and more. And I was just ready for this day to come. I was ready. I just wanted to, be on my game, and, I just wanted, the fans to enjoy it. I wanted my coaches and my agents to enjoy it. It was, it was just a lot of excitement, a lot of excitement, and I don't think anything's actually soaked in until after the fact. After the week was over, and just very special to be a part of it.
So, although your Cruiserweight Classic run was a little short, it also led to another opportunity, which, of course, people ended up seeing you on NXT in what was Hideo Itami's return to television after a very lengthy injury layoff. He had multiple shoulder surgeries. So you got to work with two of the greater Japanese legends of this era, for sure. So if someone was to, I guess figuratively, hold a gun to your head, if you had to pick between Kota and Hideo, who has the stiffer kicks? That's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Oh, damn, you put me on the spot. But you know what? After being in the ring with both of them, I would definitely say Hideo. He hit me with a running boot in the corner where I didn't know where the hell I was. But at the same time, I talked about how great Ibushi is. Kenta, Hideo is absolutely one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I've watched him a little bit more than I've watched Ibushi, and I just took a liking to his style. I just love that strong style that he brings to the table. So that was a surreal thing, in itself. To be wrestling with him, it's different watching somebody, and then now you're in the ring with them. But I was just, I just embraced the challenge. I felt, 100% that I belonged in the ring with these guys. To answer your question, definitely Hideo. Both of those matches are very special to me. Even though I would say, I speak so highly of Hideo and his kicks, but when it comes down to it, as of right now, as of today, Ibushi is the best talent that I've ever been in the ring with.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping that we'll be able to see him in the WWE once again down the road. I know that he's stated in interviews before that he has some other things that he would like to accomplish before he does that. But I would have let you get away with saying even or draw on that, so I'm glad that you actually answered.
Yeah, I had to give you something, right?
Well, we definitely appreciate it. So, of course, all that work really gave you some great exposure, and a lot of people kind of started talking, about you, and I'm sure inquiries like you got from me for interviews and perhaps bookings, requests have probably gone up for you. And I'm sure that you heard this, but Stone Cold Steve Austin actually had some great things to say about you. You'll have to forgive me because I don't remember exactly what podcast he said that on. But if you did catch wind of that, what does it mean to you to hear someone, arguably the greatest superstar that there has ever been, really giving you praise?
It's unbelievable. This is Stone Cold we're talking about. I'm pretty sure. It stemmed from me meeting him back in WrestleMania 23, I believe it was, when my Uncle Alfred first got inducted in the Hall of Fame, and I was able to witness it and be there live. And that was also, if you remember, that was Stone Cold's movie premiere week. So it was a big weekend for him, and I got to meet him for one of the first times, and actually, I'm not sure if I met him. I probably met him before that, but now I was a little bit more comfortable to to spark conversations with these guys, and being a fellow wrestler in the business, you can relate just a little bit much more. I'm gonna have to find out exactly the comments that he made. If it was something else besides our meeting. I can remember when I talked to him, I was a little bit younger, so he was joking a little bit more, and my uncle was kind of putting me over about how I'm such a tiger in the ring, and Stone Cold was he was like, well, damn son, if both of my knees were good, maybe it'd be me and you in there at WrestleMania in a couple years, and he was just being Stone Cold, but I remember just having an ear-to-ear smile, talking in person to the guy I've watched on TV forever. It's just something that, it just makes you feel good, and it's one of those stories that always stick out in your mind. So I think maybe that's what the praise was about. If you can, if you want to take it as that. If it's something else, like you said, from a podcast, I'm gonna have to find out. But whatever you said, that's pretty cool to be in the same breath as that guy for sure.
Yeah, I tried to find it for you, but it's been so many months now, and he's done so many episodes. I couldn't. I wanted to be able to give you the exact quote. Another member of my staff had brought that up to me. I was like, oh, that's a great question. I'll definitely have to bring that up.
Right.
So of course, the Cruiserweight Classic really led to a real revolution in cruiserweight wrestling, which of course has sparked now a brand new show on the network strictly for the cruiserweights, 205 Live. So it's not a secret that the WWE is really kind of reaching out to a lot of the guys that were a part of the tournament. So I know if you've got anything worked out with them, you wouldn't really be able to speak on it. However, what is the status of Sean Maluta with the WWE at this time?
As far as the WWE goes, any opportunity that they present me with, I'm gonna try to knock it out the park. 205 is definitely an appealing place to be. I mean, that is the place to be if you are a cruiserweight in wrestling. Everything is I don't know, it's a big question mark right now, but I would definitely love to be a part of it. And I just feel like there's so much talent that I could work with and mix it up with. It's a very exciting time right now. Even though it's kind of the unknown, but opportunities have a funny way of presenting themselves. So you just got to stay ready. You just got to stay by the phone, and you never know if I'll be popping up on there. But WWE or not, I'm still going to go out there and continue to get better and turn up and to have one of the best matches on the show and try to be that show stealer every night. Just staying busy. Like you said, working for the WWE sparked some more work that I'm doing with different indies. So that's very cool. I just want to keep putting on great matches that people can talk about, and whatever event it is or whatever company it is. I just always try to go out there and work hard and be something special.
Well, we do know that because of the success of that tournament, there's a lot of early talk that there is going to be another one next year. So perhaps we will see Maluta in the CWC Round 2. But before that, the company is moving towards a tournament similar to the Cruiserweight Classic, but they're doing one for the females this time around. So I actually, we kind of got to talking because you had previously done an interview for Molly, who is actually, we parted ways with her because she's actually training for the ring right now herself.
Okay.
However, I kind of came across, I guess, a girlfriend or a significant other of yours who, on Twitter, and she goes by, I believe it was Dynamite DD, if that's right?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Okay.
You're exactly right.
Who I actually don't really know anything about. So what can you kind of tell me about her work, and do you think perhaps this female tournament might be something that we might see her on?
Yeah, she started working for WXW with my uncle, I want to say a little over 2 years now. And, we just hit it off and, eventually fell in love and all that good stuff. And, it's pretty cool having, somebody that you love like that, with such a strong common interest and such common goals. It's pretty surreal sometimes, but, she's based out of Miami, Florida, same as me, just trying to stay busy and, trying to do a good job and get better all the time. I think the tournament would definitely be something that she's eyeing and would absolutely love the opportunity. Hopefully that opportunity could be presented. It should be an exciting time for the women, just like it was an exciting time for the cruiserweights. And I think the talent is out there. I think they're going out and finding it. I'm really pleased to see the direction the business has gone, especially the last couple of years alone. And the opportunities. Me and her got a similar mindset, and we do a lot of training together. We work out together, and it's pretty cool. Right now, like I said, we're just trying to take all these opportunities and knock it out the park every time, and just offer something different and something special, to the business.
Well, I certainly think, after seeing your work, I have not seen hers, so maybe I'll be able to find something online. But if you guys keep plugging away, I think the opportunity is definitely going to be there, because today, or a lot recently, it's been a lot of news about them really paying a lot more attention to the indies, and they're really going to be going into a quote-unquote signing craze for early next year. So hopefully we'll be able to see more of, if not at least both of you guys, that way. So before we wrap things up here, where can the people check out I guess as I called you, the sire of the SWAT kick in action coming up?
I actually got one coming up on Sunday. I believe it's December 11th. Which is for Beyond Wrestling. That's going to be special because I've always followed Beyond even after I moved. A lot of my good friends, continue to work there and actually, have gotten a pretty good name, from their work in Beyond Wrestling. So I'll be wrestling my old partner, Jaka. I'm pretty excited about that. The last time we wrestled was about 5 years ago, so it's going to be interesting to see how much different we got, and I like to say how much more savage we got. So I'm looking forward to that. Beyond Wrestling has always been very good to me, so you can catch us in Melrose, Massachusetts. It's actually going to be a doubleheader doubleheader event with Evolve. Our show starts at 2 p.m. and then Evolve will be after our event. So that's pretty cool. That's Sunday the 11th. My next WXW show down in Mineola, Florida, that'll be on December 17th. Looking forward to that. You can catch me at WXW. I'm always a sure thing every single month. Currently the world champion there, so it's great always to go back home. And to start the new year off, check out PPW if you're in the Fort Lauderdale area. It's my first time. Actually, it's the company's first event. I'm very excited to be working with them, and like I said, the schedule is getting a little bit busier, and I couldn't be happier. Just going out there and getting some more experience, and working the best talent that's offered, and I'm very excited, to just the potential of working a lot of these talents that I enjoy watching is pretty exciting. So, I can't wait to mix it up with a lot of these guys, and whether it's in the indies or in the WWE. You stay up to date with me on Twitter. On Twitter, at SWATkick is the username. Instagram, the same thing, and Facebook, Sean Maluta. So, stay tuned, and hopefully you can check me out wherever your city is at.
That sounds great. And if anybody needs the spelling on that, SWAT Kick is SAVATE at SWAT Kick. So if you would like to follow Sean on Instagram and Twitter, and then, of course, under his name on Facebook, definitely go check out his upcoming appearances tomorrow for Beyond Wrestling in Massachusetts, and then later on for WXW. I think that does it for us. Sean, thank you so much for taking some time out, and we've actually got some time, or we're going to be finished in time for you to check out some football tonight, if that's what you're doing.
It was my pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity again, and I'm definitely going to take you up on that. I'm definitely going to be watching some football tonight.